Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, day one of the government shutdown. There's still no agreement on a proposal to continue current levels of government spending as the funding debate turns into an all-out messaging war impacting millions of federal workers. Luis Eduardo Martinez has the latest from Capitol Hill. A special guest joins White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt at her briefing today, and the latest from the White House on the government shutdown. Despite the government shutdown, Secretary Kristi Noem says the Department of Homeland Security will still be operating. Jason Blair has more on that, plus the latest day to activate the National Guard to assist ICE operations. The Supreme Court today is allowing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to keep her job for now. Arlene Richards has that legal update. A public housing building in New York City partially collapses after an explosion terrifying residents. How Mayor Eric Adams is responding as investigators work to determine the cause of the blast.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Day one of government shutdown, Senate Democrats blocked a procedural vote to reconsider a stopgap bill to reopen the government. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has the latest on the story.
Republicans thought that they could barrel us into a shutdown because they didn't want to protect the health care of the American people. Well, now they've seen they can't bully us, they can't barrel us. They don't have the votes to push their partisan bill through that did nothing to protect American health care.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has maintained his maximalist demands despite that members of his conference have already shown opposition to hold government funding hostage.
We were elected to solve the problems of this country, not make them worse. And that's exactly what Donald Trump and his Republican henchmen are seeking to do.
It is now a messaging war, and despite the fact that Congress holds the power of the purse, Democrats are blaming President Trump for the shutdown. Republicans maintain their willingness to negotiate with Democrats their extension of Affordable Care Act healthcare tax credits that they are demanding.
This is not the time to take the American people hostage. The ACA credits don't run out until December. But the best way to do that is to open the government and let's get back to this thing called regular order so we can have those debates, we can have those committee hearings, we can have those negotiations.
Senate Republicans are focusing their messaging on moderate Democrats, calling on them to vote for the continuing resolution to reopen government. 4 more Democrats are needed to do so.
I actually don't think it's going to be that long of a shutdown. This is a pure guess from the Vice President of the United States because I think you already saw some evidence that moderate Democrats are cracking a little bit. They understand the fundamental illogic of this.
Chuck Schumer, at the behest of a bunch of liberal, far-left activist groups, has walked his Democrat colleagues into a boxed canyon.
The continuing resolution that House Republicans passed and Senate Republicans support extends levels of government funding set by Democrats during the Biden administration. Republicans have also chosen not to enact the spending cuts proposed by the Department of Government Efficiency. Ultimately, Democrats have already voted for current levels of government funding 13 times in the past. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Vice President J.D. Vance joining the press secretary in the briefing room today. We now go live to NTD's Mari Otsu, who was at the briefing. Good evening, Mari. What is the White House saying about the government shutdown?
Tiff, good evening. Yes, the White House is blaming Democrats for the government shutdown, saying that it impacts active duty troops, critical food assistance, and flood insurance as we enter hurricane season. And Vice President J.D. Vance today is saying this at a surprise appearance at the White House press briefing. Watch.
Whatever those disagreements are, you don't shut down the government over it. For the first time since the Democrats have been in politics, they're now saying that unless we get every policy item that we demand, we're going to shut down the people's government. They're trying to take a hostage, and we're not going to let them.
The White House website featuring a government shutdown clock and the press secretary leaving this message on the White House comment line.
Thank you for calling the White House comment line. Democrats in Congress have shut down the federal government because they care more about funding health care for illegal immigrants than they care about serving you.
Meanwhile, Vice President Vance says he doesn't think the shutdown will be long. He's calling on more moderate Democrats today to join Republicans in voting to keep the government open.
So 3 moderate Democrats joined 52 Republicans last night. We need 5 more.
While Republicans have offered a clean short-term budget bill, the White House criticizing Democrats for holding the economy hostage for what it calls free health care for illegal immigrants. Though Democrats say that's not what they're demanding.
Political leadership of their party has got it into their heads that the only way to be compassionate is to be compassionate to illegal aliens rather than American citizens.
No, the law is clear that no Medicaid, no Medicare, no ACA can go to any undocumented immigrants.
And Tiff, I don't know if you've seen this, but the White House has been replaying this meme in the briefing room. It's a post that President Trump originally put on his Truth Social of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero. Look.
Don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face.
Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? The president's joking, and we're having a good time.
Vice President Vance says he makes the solemn promise to stop the sombrero memes if Hakeem helps reopen the government. Tiff, back to you.
All right, Mari, thanks for those updates. The GOP spending bill already extends Democrat levels of funding, including undoing any DOGE cuts. Will Republicans make any more concessions, or is the burden squarely on Democrats' shoulders? Tonight on Capitol Report with Steve Lyons, hear from Representative Monica De La Cruz. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Missouri joins Louisiana to activate National Guard troops to support ICE and address public safety concerns. This as the Department of Homeland Security says its operations will continue despite the government shutdown. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe has authorized his state's National Guard to support ICE operations. The authorization starts on October 1st and continues until September 30th, 2026. Governor Kehoe says the move comes after a request from the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of War. The service members will assist with, quote, tasks such as data entry, case management, and logistical support, enabling ICE personnel to focus on core enforcement and security functions. He posts, Missouri is proud to join in the Trump administration's efforts to keep our state and nation secure. Using FBI data, Kansas City, Missouri ranks 4th in the nation for violent crime with 1,547 violent offenses per 100,000 people, according to 2024 data. Ranking first in 2024 violent crime is Memphis, Tennessee, with 2,501 violent crimes per 100,000 people. The Trump administration started a federally led crackdown on crime in Memphis on Monday.
Just this year alone, they have had 150 murders, and it's going to stop.
Attorney General Pam Bondi left for Memphis along with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Bondi says she'll be meeting with the Tennessee governor and the Memphis mayor. She says that cashless bail in Memphis is an issue.
Someone who committed a violent murder recently in Memphis in 2024, I think, had just been let out months before on cashless bail and then commits a murder.
Bondi says that after 2 days of the federal law enforcement operation in Memphis, 53 people have been arrested and 20 illegal firearms have been confiscated. Bondi adds on Tuesday a missing juvenile was located and 3 firearms were recovered at the home of a murder suspect. And while the government is shut down, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says that the department will still continue to operate. However, its 200,000 plus personnel will be going without pay. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
The Supreme Court today has deferred the Trump administration's request to overturn an injunction on President Trump's efforts to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Cook remains in office until at least January 2026. NTD's Arlene Richards has more details.
In a very brief order on Wednesday, Chief Justice John Roberts declined to grant the Trump administration's request to remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook from her job. The unsigned order states that the matter is, quote, deferred pending oral argument in January 2026. It sets in motion a briefing schedule that will allow both sides to lay out their arguments on paper before the in-person appearance in January. Cook can continue working for the bank's board until at least January. The move upholds a lower court's injunction on the firing attempt, which was prompted by allegations that Cook engaged in mortgage fraud. A court of appeals rejected an emergency appeal, which prompted the immediate application to the Supreme Court. Trump invoked the Federal Reserve Act in an August termination letter to Cook. The act states that the president can remove a member of the board for cause. He stated that he was removing her for cause, citing sufficient reason to believe that she had made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements. Cook has argued that the firing is without cause because she hasn't been charged or convicted of a crime. She denies the fraud claims. The court's decision today puts in the spotlight the potential for a landmark case over the long-held shield of independence the Fed has enjoyed from the executive branch. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Part of a high-rise apartment in New York City collapsed this morning, turning a corner of the public housing building into rubble. A preliminary investigation suggests that an explosion triggered the collapse. New York City Mayor Eric Adams was at the scene to brief the public.
This happened at 8:10 this morning. We received reports of an incident involving the chimney to the boiler room here at NYCHA's Mitchell houses. This resulted in a partial building's collapse. We are extremely fortunate. At this time, we have no loss of life or no injuries.
We ran our dogs over this pile of bricks that is behind us, which is the structure that collapsed. It is a ventilation shaft connected to the boiler, which collapsed. We believe that's where the explosion occurred.
Authorities are still investigating the exact cause of the explosion. About 3,500 people live in the Mitchell houses, a public housing project in the Bronx built around 1966. The collapse has forced some residents to evacuate. Inspectors are now checking the foundation of the building and affected apartments to ensure resident safety. Coming up, Israel forces intensify strikes in the Gaza Strip as they wait for Hamas to accept President Trump's plan for peace. Meanwhile, the Israeli Navy intercepts boats carrying pro-Palestine activists attempting to sail to the Gaza Strip. Jason Perry with the update. A nuclear plant in Ukraine is left without power after recent attacks. Arian Pozdar has more on the dangers this poses and how authorities are responding. That and more when we return. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. In the Middle East, Israeli forces are keeping the pressure on Hamas as the terrorist group has yet to accept the Gaza peace plan put forth by President Trump. Meanwhile, the Israeli Navy has intercepted several boats carrying pro-Palestine activists approaching the Gaza Strip. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
On Wednesday, residents in the Gaza Strip were seen fleeing to the southern part of the territory as Israeli forces continue to battle the Hamas terrorist group. Many residents are waiting to see whether the Hamas terrorist group will accept the new plan to end the war in the Gaza Strip.
The bombing is ongoing. We pray to God that the road does not close, that this war ends, and that Hamas agrees to President Trump's plan, and that Israel agrees. We are tired. I mean, I am 28 years old, and I did not do anything in my life.
The Gaza peace plan says that if Hamas releases all of the hostages, lays down their weapons, and commits to peaceful coexistence, members of Hamas will receive amnesty and will be provided safe passage to receiving countries. Also on Wednesday, Israeli forces reportedly struck a building that was being used as a shelter in Gaza City, one of Hamas's final strongholds. And residents south of Gaza City in Deir al-Bala ran to the scene of an Israeli airstrike that reportedly hit a tent near a hospital. Israeli forces say they take numerous steps before strikes to mitigate harm to civilians. On Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt gave an update on the Gaza peace plan.
I can tell you that there are some very sensitive discussions that are taking place, but I certainly don't want to get ahead of any announcement at this podium. I'm going to let Special Envoy Witkoff and the President of the United States handle that.
Meanwhile, a group of boats called the Samud Flotilla, carrying activists in support of Palestine, including Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, attempted to break the Israeli maritime blockade and deliver aid to residents in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Navy gave this message to the flotilla before intercepting the boats.
This is the Israeli Navy. You are approaching a blockaded zone. If you wish to deliver aid to Gaza, you may do so through the established channels. Please change your course toward the port of Ashdod, where the aid will undergo a security inspection and then be transferred into the Gaza Strip.
Just the day before, the Israel Defense Forces released documents found in the Gaza Strip, which they say show that Hamas was directly involved in paying for the Samud Flotilla. Jason Perry, NTD News.
A nuclear plant in Ukraine is left without power after recent attacks. Authorities now have to improvise to cool the reactors, which is crucial to prevent a nuclear accident. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has more.
Ukraine and the United Nations Nuclear Agency are sounding the alarm about a nuclear plant in southern Ukraine. The Zaporizhzhia power plant is located in occupied territory, thus currently being controlled by Russia. The plant lost its external power supply more than a week ago as the war rages around it. Emergency diesel generators are now providing power for crucial cooling systems for the facility's 6 shutdown reactors. The UN agency says the situation is stable as long as the emergency diesel generators are able to provide sufficient power to maintain essential safety-related functions and cooling. Ukraine blames Russian artillery for cutting the power line to the plant, which Moscow denies.
It's not a secret to anybody that the plant and its infrastructure come under constant fire from the Kyiv regime.
Meanwhile, NATO is working to set up defensive structures to counter airspace violations by Russia. NATO members Poland, Estonia and Romania all report recent airspace penetrations by Moscow. Romania is now working to ramp up production of defensive drones.
To build the defensive capacity that we need, not just for Romania, but also as an offering for other EU and NATO countries. The United States as well has recently announced the procurement decision for such drones.
And European leaders are meeting in Denmark on Wednesday to discuss support for Ukraine and broader defense concerns. It's the first opportunity for member states to debate a proposal to use frozen Russian assets to fund a loan to Ukraine. The European Commission proposed using the funds to finance a reparation loan to bolster Ukraine's war effort.
We are not confiscating the assets, but we are taking the cash balances for loan to Ukraine. Ukraine has to pay back this loan if Russia pays reparations because the perpetrator has to be held accountable.
Russia says Europe is planning to steal its investments, saying countries involved in the plan will be prosecuted. And a Ukrainian diver identified as Vladimir Z appeared before a court in Poland. He was allegedly involved in the Nord Stream pipeline explosions. The 2022 blasts cut much of Russian gas supplies to Europe. Both Moscow and the West described it as an act of sabotage, blaming each other. The court on Wednesday decided that the suspect must remain in custody while a decision is made on whether to extradite him to Germany, which had issued the arrest warrant. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
Would you support President Trump running for a third term? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
President Trump's been talking about potentially running for a third term. Perhaps a joke, perhaps not. Would you like to see that happen?
Yes. I would like to, but it's not going to happen. That's not right. And, you know, he does say and do some things that even we don't agree, but I don't think that will happen.
You say you would like to see that happen?
I would like it, yes. He deserves to be in there because he's moving everything forward. And that's great.
Sure, yeah, but I don't think he can. Not with is it the 22nd Amendment?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I don't even want to comment.
I certainly think he will. By the time it comes around, it'll be legal to do so.
And would you be behind that?
Hell no. pretty soon it'll only be Republicans that can own guns, too.
President Trump has been talking about potentially running for a third term. Would you be on board with that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge political person, but, I'm very turned off by the Democrats and just liberals and just all of that.
I don't think anybody should be up beyond 2 terms. That's been a tradition in our country, and I think that's been pretty well established.
How about Vance 2028? What do you think?
No. No, please no. I don't have that many years left on this planet. I don't want this to go down like this.
I see that happening. Yeah. Yep.
Would you be supporting him?
Yes.
Probably a continuation of what Trump has started. Just, finishing it out and carrying it through.
I really, to be honest, don't know exactly what he's doing right now. I haven't really followed his speeches or interviews, so if it's not Trump, then for sure, Vance.
I won't close off to it. I liked what he said a lot more before the election than when he joined the ticket.
So you're open-minded?
Well, I try to be.
How about Vance 2028?
Yeah.
That would be a good call. There's a couple other guys that could be in the running as well. We'll have to wait and see because we really don't know much about Vance right now.
But did you ever watch his movie that he made about, well, he didn't make it, but they made it about his life and where he came from to where he is today? It was only God that did that. But I would definitely vote for him in 28.
A halt on $18 billion in infrastructure projects in New York City. The White House Budget Director Russ Vought shared on X that the funds have been frozen. He said this is to ensure they are not being used based on, quote, unconstitutional DEI principles. The funding was set for the Hudson River Tunnel project and the 2nd Avenue subway project. The Department of Transportation said it is focusing on these projects because they are arguably the largest infrastructure initiatives in the Western Hemisphere. It added that the American people want to see them completed quickly and efficiently. The DOT said no project reimbursements can be processed until the review is complete. Today's government shutdown impacts federal programs and services ranging from Social Security to national parks. NTD's David Lamb has more on how you could be affected.
Lawmakers have failed to agree on funding plans by the October 1st deadline, resulting in a government shutdown. During a shutdown, essential tasks are still carried out, but non-essential federal workers are sent home without pay.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that'll keep going. Congress is not in session. However, the way they have this worked out, they do get paid. A lot of government agencies will be shut down.
But thanks to a law passed in 2019, government employees will receive back pay after the shutdown is resolved. Here is what will happen. Social Security checks will still be mailed, but verification of benefits will be halted and new cards won't be issued. The U.S. Postal Service will continue delivering mail. SNAP, also known as food stamps, will continue, but some programs may be affected if government staff stop working. In previous years, some IRS activities slowed down as workers were sent home, but resumed once the shutdown was over. In any case, it's still necessary to pay taxes.
If this goes on for some time, it will cause damage to the economy. It causes a lot of inconvenience for people too, and they're going to start to get upset. So I don't think the government will allow this to go on for any fairly long time period.
TSA workers at the airport will continue to work, but without pay. There will also be delays in passport and visa processing times. The National Park Service will limit activities at parks. The agency estimated that a 2013 shutdown cost the agency more than $500 million. The Small Business Administration will stop processing loan applications. Military service members will still be working, but without pay. It's estimated that more than 800,000 government workers will be sent home, while 700,000 will work without pay. The White House and Republicans have been in a standoff with Democrats over a stopgap bill that would fund the government through November 21st. This time, the White House is planning to permanently lay off federal workers if an agreement is not reached. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Coming up, Turning Point USA held its largest ever event at a college yesterday, drawing over 6,000 attendees. That's despite a suspected bomb threat forced the campus to evacuate hours before the event. Jack Bradley reports. And Elon Musk is urging parents to boycott Netflix, accusing the streaming giant of pushing a, quote, transgender woke agenda on children. That's over kids' shows that contain LGBT content. Will Hild from Consumers Research joins us to discuss when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Thousands attending Turning Point USA's event yesterday at Utah State. That was despite a bomb scare that forced an evacuation in the hours leading up to the event. Turning Point was founded by Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated last month at one of these events. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Turning Point, founded by Charlie Kirk, hosted its largest college event on Tuesday evening with over 6,000 attendees at Utah State University.
Each of us certainly feels the weight of this loss, but what we don't do, what we refuse to do, is bow to despair.
Only in a country like the United States can you have a tour with a person like Charlie Kirk going out and speaking his mind.
People that he talked to, people who were very different than him, people that disagreed with him. You saw those videos just now. He treated them with respect, he treated them with love, and he treated them with dignity.
The event carried on despite the suspicion of a bomb threat nearby at a campus building. The device was deemed to be non-explosive and it was detonated by law enforcement, and the event resumed as normal. Charlie Kirk was assassinated while speaking at one of these campus events last month. It was just 2 hours south at Utah Valley University. This was the first Turning Point event in Utah since.
We have more tour stops coming. We're not backing down. Tim, hopefully you don't think we're totally crazy for doing this, but we have to go on. Charlie would have mandated it. I can tell you that.
Let's call it brave. In the face of your fears, you persevere.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the security is extraordinarily robust, magnitudes more than anything we've ever done, and there's a lot of people, I will just say, that are working in conjunction with it.
And Charlie's legacy is inspiring more people to come out and support. Conservative political commentator Steven Crowder said that he's been so moved by recent events that he's gone back on campus in honor of Charlie, continuing his Change My Mind events where he sits down with college students to debate controversial topics.
The assassination in cold blood is an act of terrorism of Charlie Kirk. Is that political violence?
Crowder said he pulled back from these campus events due to security issues, with those in the audience that opposed him turning violent.
When I did change my mind and started in 2016, the idea was, hey, calling the left on their bluff, civil dialogue with anyone to the tune of billions of plays and hundreds of hours. And it got increasingly violent. And what I didn't tell people, I told people out there, go do this on your own campus, have these conversations. I advocated for it. And Charlie took it to another level. He was unbelievable at it. I didn't tell people about the threats because I didn't want copycats. I didn't tell them about terrorists from Yemen through Sweden showing up in East Grand Rapids. I didn't tell them about concrete milkshakes. I didn't tell them about my tires getting slashed, about people trying to firebomb my car.
Turning Point's national tour continues with some of the biggest conservative names, including Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and Glenn Beck. The organization has seen tens of thousands of requests in recent weeks to either join a chapter or create a new one at high schools and colleges across the country. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Elon Musk is urging parents to boycott Netflix. In a meme shared on X that Musk reacted to today, Netflix was depicted as a Trojan horse with its contents labeled Transgender Woke Agenda, which was being wheeled into a castle marked Your Kids. Musk wrote in his post, quote, cancel Netflix for the health of your kids. This comes a day after he criticized the animated show Dead End Paranormal Park for featuring transgender storylines and themes. Musk reposted a clip from the series, writing, quote, this is not okay. Marketed as suitable for children aged 7 and up, the show includes a character who comes out as identifying as transgender. The character says, quote, I've never been happier. Other kids' shows that feature LGBT themes include The Dragon Prince, She-Ra, and the Princesses of Power, and The Owl House. Joining us now to discuss is Will Hild, Executive Director of Consumers Research. Will, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. Now, first, what do you make of Musk's accusations against Netflix?
I think they're entirely accurate. This is a company that has pushed a woke agenda with children for years now. Libs of TikTok posted a 2 or 3 year old clip from Cocomelon where they have a kid cross-dressing, dancing for his 2 gay dads, which has obviously reignited a controversy around that show as well today. It's long overdue, and I'm glad that someone with the prominence of Elon is pushing back.
And in your view, is there a risk that many parents don't know that Netflix programs their kids are watching may contain LGBT content or themes that promote transgenderism?
Yeah, it's a huge risk, and it's something that Netflix has been pushing without really, advertising it or making it clear that that's what they're doing with kids. They just put it into otherwise normal shows. Like I said, Cocomelon, I think, had like 10 or 15 seasons with absolutely none of that in it until this past couple of years, and they've started introducing it. So that's the other issue is sometimes you'll start watching a show and it's unclear that it contains that kind of transgender ideology or LGBTQ ideology, and then you maybe leave the room while you let your kids watch it, and suddenly they're being indoctrinated with this kind of gender ideology nonsense.
And will we have seen increasing concern from parents over the types of content being pushed on their children from, say, books to TV shows? Now, one of the Netflix shows in question, Dead End Paranormal Park, is marketed to those 7 and up. Do you see there being a need for regulation on what does or doesn't count as being for kids?
That's a great question. I'm generally loath to have the government engage in the regulation of speech, but one of the exceptions that we all pretty much agree to is that certainly doesn't apply when you're talking about children. This is something that we've seen in efforts to prevent children from accessing pornography in a number of different states like Florida and Virginia and Texas. And I think there is a question here of whether this is something that we want to protect children from. It also, this isn't incidental. These corporations have an agenda of pushing this stuff. Our organization, Consumers Research, went after State Farm Insurer many years ago because they were working with a project called the Gender Cool Initiative, and they were buying books aimed at kids as young as 5. And that's not my word. It was said on the book, kids 5 and up, that had titles like a kid's book about being transgender or a kid's book about being non-binary. And they were buying these books and donating them to public schools to get them in the hands of children explicitly. So it really, if this was just something that was accidental or a writer had slipped something in, that'd be a little different. But it's clear that Netflix and a lot of other corporations have an agenda to target children with this kind of radical ideology that's, in fact, a form of grooming in a lot of ways.
Now, following Musk's call for a boycott, Netflix stock closed down 2.3%. Now, looking back, Disney took a significant hit after it was accused of doing the same thing. Do you think we could see Netflix changing its direction as a result? How likely is that?
Well, it's unclear. See, one of the problems that we've got in pushing back on corporate America is that the large asset managers like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard control so many of the shares of the company that they can insulate the executive class from a lot of the bad decisions that they're making from a consumer standpoint. And I think that's part of what's going on with Disney. Disney's shares have been in the tank. Their 5-year performance, especially when relative to the S&P 500, have been absolutely abysmal. But they actually brought back the CEO that took them in a woke turn, Bob Iger. And I think that's because of the influence of CEOs like Larry Fink at BlackRock and others at Vanguard and State Street. And so I think that's a problem that we really need to solve. It's one of the main things we focus on at Consumers Research. We need to get these asset managers out of the business of insulating executives from the consequences of their decisions.
And Will, as you know, Musk is an entrepreneur who likes to take risks. How likely are we to see him launch a Netflix rival? Is there a market for that?
Well, that's a great question. He's got his finger in so many pies in that way. He's rocket company, a car company, but he's also apparently going to create a competitor to Wikipedia, and he's active in the AI space in a very aggressive way. So it would be great if he was to put those type of resources and his mind power behind a alternative to Netflix. And a lot of times what the real allure of these stations, of these streaming stations is not so much the stuff that they make, it's the licenses that they have purchased over the years. That's certainly the case with Disney. A lot of the stuff they're making now isn't that popular, but they hold the keys to seeing a lot of the old intellectual property that people beloved around Mickey Mouse and Cinderella and all that kind of stuff. And Netflix is the same way. So I think even just a streaming service that simply bought up or did the best they could to get old IP that didn't contain any kind of this crazy woke left agenda, I think would do very well and probably wouldn't take that much of a lift. So it would take a lot of initiative, and it would take some capital expenditure. And Elon would be the guy to do it for sure.
Well, Will Hild, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Jane Goodall, the primatologist known for her field studies with chimpanzees, has died at the age of 91. A look at her work and legacy. And a digital actress is causing real drama in Hollywood. Tilly Norwood, created entirely with AI, is raising questions about the future of film and human performers. Christina Corona reports from Hollywood. And in baseball's layoffs, after just one loss, the Yankees' backs are against the wall while facing their longtime rivals. Dave Martin joins us to discuss when we return. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Legendary primatologist Jane Goodall died today. Her namesake institute says she died of natural causes and that she was, quote, a tireless advocate for the protection and restoration of our natural world. Goodall is known for her field work with chimpanzees, which included documenting the primates' emotions and personality traits. She's also credited with changing the overall way scientists study animals. Goodall, who was on a speaking tour of the U.S. when she died, was 91 years old. A digital actress is turning heads and raising questions in Hollywood. Made entirely with AI, Tilly Norwood is drawing criticism from the industry, though some are in favor of her. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more from Hollywood.
There may be a new rising star in Hollywood, but she is not human. She is made of all code. This AI actress is already grabbing agencies' interest and stirring up a whole lot of commotion here in Hollywood.
Tilly Norwood, a computer-generated actress created by AI studio Particle 6, was built using 10 different tools. The company calls her a hyper-realistic digital avatar designed for use in campaigns and media projects. Tilly's creator, Elaine van der Velden, says she's already getting agency interest. We asked several people on Hollywood Boulevard if Tilly looks like a real human.
Yeah, in the previous image, yes.
She looks real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
It's real.
Real?
No, I don't think it's real.
However, Tilly received a lot of backlash in Hollywood, saying Norwood represents a real threat. SAG-AFTRA weighed in, saying, to be clear, Tilly Norwood is not an actor. It's a character generated by a computer program that was trained on the work of countless professional performers, without permission or compensation. They go on to say it has no life experience to draw from, no emotion, and from what we've seen, audiences aren't interested in watching computer-generated content untethered from the human experience. Whoopi Goldberg said, it's got Bette Davis's attitude, it's got Humphrey Bogart's lips, and so it's a little bit of an unfair advantage. Van der Velden insists that she is not a replacement for a human being, but a creative work, a piece of art. She also says that AI characters should be judged on their own terms, not squeezed into human comparisons. When asked if AI characters should be used in movies,
No, because real people put like feelings when they acting, so I prefer real persons.
Would you support or watch a movie if you knew it had AI characters?
I don't know. I couldn't say no because probably I will watch a movie, but I will support real actors.
at the Zurich summit over the weekend, van der Velden said a talent agency would be announced in the coming months to represent Norwood.
Well, whether you're for it or against it, AI is here and is changing the entertainment industry. Reporting from the city of Hollywood, Christina Corona, NTD News.
And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, plenty going on right now, but let's start in the NFL as the Washington Commanders have cleared quarterback Jayden Daniels to practice after missing 2 straight games with a sprained knee. What does his return mean for them?
I mean, quite simply, it means they have their best player back, really one of the best players in the league. Now, last year as a rookie, he threw for more than 3,500 yards and rushed for nearly 900 on the ground. He was the league's offensive rookie of the year, and he led the Commanders to their first playoff wins in 20 years. So so obviously he's pretty good. Not many players can do what he does with being a dual threat like that with his arm and his legs. Fortunately, the team went 1-1 during his absence. Marcus Mariota filled in well at quarterback. Now, elsewhere in the league, the Cleveland Browns announced their starting rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel in favor of veteran Joe Flacco. Now, Gabriel was the team's third-round pick last May. Now, even though Flacco was demoted, head coach Kevin Stefanski said Flacco will still remain the backup. And that means rookie Shedeur Sanders would still appear to be the team's number 3 quarterback. So, Tiff, that's just an FYI for your fantasy football league, in case that comes in handy for you, all right?
I forgot to check how my team's doing. Speaking of Cleveland, the Browns will face the Vikings Sunday in London. Now, this will mark Minnesota's second straight game overseas, having played last Sunday in Dublin. Why does the NFL play these international games?
Well, I don't think they're actually looking to expand over in Europe and have some franchises there with like a Europe division or anything like that. But surely they wouldn't mind having, one of those big international TV contracts, much like the NBA has. Now, the NFL's current TV deal is huge. It breaks in approximately $110 billion over an 11-year period. That's combined from 5 different sources. You've got Disney, ESPN, CBS, Paramount, NBC, Comcast, Amazon, and Fox. Now, the NBA had a similar game plan years ago after following up on the success and really the immense popularity of the Dream Team back in the 1992 Olympics. That eventually led to them getting a TV deal in China, playing a bunch of international games over there. Now, the NFL clearly targeting Europe and South America, specifically Brazil there. Now, they've already announced they're going to have 3 games in Rio de Janeiro over a 5-year period starting next year. They had a game in Sao Paulo, Brazil earlier this year. And NFL Commissioner Roger Goodall says he'd like to get up to 16 international games per season. Right now, they're at 7. So it sounds really like this is something that's going to pay, future dividends for the league, as if they're really, hurting for money. But they always want more, of course.
It's all about the money. Shifting gears to baseball, though, the Cleveland Guardians even up their series against the Detroit Tigers with a win this afternoon.
Yeah, Guardians won 6-1 today in a game that was very close until Cleveland blew it open in the 8th inning with 5 runs there. Guardians catcher Bo Naylor hit a 3-run home run in the 8th. It was one of 2 Cleveland home runs that inning. The Detroit had their chances too. Now, the Tigers had the go-ahead run come off the board in the 4th inning after Javier Baez singled with the bases loaded. That looked like it scored 2, but on replay, Detroit's Zach McKinstry was thrown out at 3rd while trying to go from 1st to 3rd on that, and the out was just an instant before Dylan Dingler scored what would have been their 2nd run. It was taken off the board, though. Then in the 7th, with the game still tied at 1, Cleveland had the first runners at 1st and 3rd, no outs, but could not get a run across the board. And then the next inning, Cleveland blew the game open. So tomorrow, these two will play the deciding Game 3 in Cleveland, as were games 1 and 2 here.
And elsewhere, we have the same playoff schedule as yesterday. Cubs and Padres played this afternoon. Yankees and Red Sox started a few minutes ago, and then the Dodgers play the Reds tonight, leading that series 1-0.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch more here to talk about. Padres beat the Cubs this afternoon 3-0 in a game that ended just really minutes ago. San Diego upgraded their bullpen at the trade deadline. It really showed today. Their bullpen allowed just 1 hit, no runs over 5 1/3 shutout innings to seal the win. Manny Machado hit a 2-run home run in the 5th inning. So they've tied that series up at 1. The decisive Game 3 will then be tomorrow in Chicago in that series as well. Now, yesterday, Yankees-Red Sox game featured quite a pitching duel. Garrett Crochet of Boston and Max Fried of New York were very good. Boston, though, got to New York's bullpen, 2 runs in the 7th and another one in the 9th. Yankees nearly got to Aroldis Chapman in the 9th. They had the bases loaded. Chapman, though, got out of it with a pair of strikeouts and a flyout, so Boston won Game 1, 1-0. Right now in Game 2, in the 2nd inning, Yankees are up 2-0 in that game. And then tonight, Dodgers look to eliminate the Reds in what looks like at least the biggest mismatch of these playoffs, at least on paper anyway. Last night it sure did. Shohei Ohtani hit a pair of home runs. Dodgers at one point led 10-2 after 7 innings. Reds did get 3 runs off their bullpen. If the Dodgers have a weakness, it probably is their bullpen, so we'll see going forward how they manage that in this postseason.
All right, well, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.